What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Corbin Claypool Show. Today I have Prentice on, who's a friend, fellow mortgage lender at a different company. We're going to bring, talks about the market, some other stuff, and some also a personal story that I think is really impactful to share. And yeah, let's get into it, man. So Prentice, introduce yourself. Tell the audience a little bit about you, the company that you work for, and all that good stuff.
My name is Prentice Rios. I've been in the mortgage industry since 2016, licensed in 2017. I started at a mortgage broker here in town, locally. Back then, worked my way up, over the last few years. 2021, I became partner at Universal Lending, and there's three partners there, myself, Josh Jackson, and Kyle Wilkins. We're all partners. We have an office in Clovis, Visalia, Hanford, and an office in Sacramento. Been doing this now for 6 years, and it's been great so far, man. I've really loved what I do, and kind of just been taking it as it goes now.
Yeah,
as the market shifts a little bit. So yeah,
it's been a different market, but I think it's been a learning opportunity for all of us. What were you doing before you were into mortgages? Was it a similar industry?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So before I got into mortgages, I was working as a scrub tech for a surgery center. So I would be a scrub tech for eye surgeries for about 6 years there. I actually worked there a full 10 years, but then I was doing scrub tech for about 6 years. Just grinding away 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday normally. At one point though, when my family started to grow, because I'm married, I have 4 kids, and now I have 2 grandkids. So when the family started to grow a little bit more, I realized I didn't have time for them at all. I was just at work all day long, and I kind of wanted something different. I kind of dipped my toe into mortgage way back when, in like 2008, like when everything was kind of happening. And I had, just kind of seen the industry a little bit. Actually, Kyle, who's my business partner now, was the person that I actually kind of started with back then.
Okay.
So, he kind of introduced me to things. I kind of got familiar with things. And at that point, he wanted me to like go on it full bore. But, I had a full-time job, which was actually paying good money at that time. And so I had to support my family. But at one point, when I realized, like I said, I wasn't having enough time for my family. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I got to do something else. And there was no more room for growth there. There was no more room for anything there. So, I quit. I told, I was at Gold Standard Mortgage before, and I told Nick Merlo, who was my mentor and one of the owners at the time there, hey, I'm just going to go for it, So basically, I quit. I pulled my 401k completely. Lived off my 401k for a good 5 to 6 months probably, until I got my first deal.
Wow.
And then just kind of took it from there.
Dude, I think that's a huge testament. You hear of Tony Robbins saying, burn the boats, right?
Yeah.
And that's really what you did. You burned the boats. You basically just threw everything that you knew away and just moved on this new path. So what were some of the challenges that you were facing at that time then? I mean, if you're living off your 401k, that's very stressful, right, I'm sure, and making your bills and all that. So how did you get your first deal? How did you come up on that? And then how did you scale to what you're doing now?
So when I started, 2016, end of 2016, and then really in 2017 when I got licensed, my main goal was to reach as many realtor partners at that time as I could, because nobody knew really, nobody knew who I was.
Right.
And the company that I was at was just starting to at the same time, really, and within a year before that. So it was really challenging to, reach out to people, get them to recognize me in general, and then recognize the company. So my first order of business was like emailing. Honestly, I probably emailed like 2,000 realtors asking for like, hey, you want to meet up, calling them, texting them, doing coffees as all loan officers do, right? Doing all that thing. And that's how I really realized, man, I need to like step my game up a little bit at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I found the success. Honestly, that's where my foundation started, was in that. It was reaching out to realtors. My first deal was a deal in Fowler. I remember it like it was yesterday. Actually, people I know, so, and I've known for a while. The realtor I had reached out to, his name's Jess Garcia, great guy. Reached out to him probably month or couple months before, and he ended up sending me the lead, but I actually kind of knew these people. So I remember doing the deal. It was a 45-day escrow FHA loan, and hit it right on 45 days. Back then 45 days was like the norm.
Right.
Around 2017, 45-day escrows was pretty normal.
And what company were you with again?
I was at Gold Standard Mortgage before.
Gold Standard. Okay.
Yeah.
So you were a broker.
Yeah, I was a broker starting out.
You were brokering to UWM at this point still, or were they just kind of getting their feet going?
So at that point, we were mainly brokering to Stearns, when Stearns was probably at the top of their game, honestly.
Right.
And UWM was around, but we had just started to kind of integrate into them. And they were not what they are now, obviously, at that time. And the technology wasn't that what it is now over there at that time. But we had just started to integrate into them at that time.
Yeah, what UWM has done is completely changed the industry, because I feel like the broker side was good before, but it wasn't anywhere near what it is now. Now brokers are extremely competitive in their pricing, but also just the service levels, right? Like that was the whole reason why people are like, you can't go broker, you need to be retail. And I'm correspondent retail, so I'm not speaking from a bias here, but they would say you can't be retail, or you can be retail, don't be a broker, all this kind of stuff. And now UWM, their 10-day closes, 15-day closes, it's a completely different ball game now.
Yeah, like everybody always says the technology part, right? The technology part is what really sets them apart from anywhere else.
Like you can order your own CD, you can order your own docs. That's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy how, I can go from contract day one, disclose day one, get everything in, and they have this process now, and that I can get CD out at initial underwrite. So if I get that contract in day one, get it underwritten, and then if it gets underwritten by the next day, and they sign the LE, then that CD goes out like the second day.
Usually in my memory, it's freaking 2 hours and your loan's under.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It depends how busy they are, right?
That's true. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like back in 2020, 2021, it was taking a little bit more time, and they didn't really have that CD at initial underwrite type thing that we're talking about.
Right.
But it's just crazy how fast that they do things, honestly.
Yeah. No, they're definitely a game changer, and they've made brokers very competitive, and there's a lot of people moving that way. I don't think it's every person is going to be in I guess what I'm trying to say is everybody's going to benefit differently in different situations. So some people do better on broker, some people do better with retail. Right. I think for a broker, man, you have to know quite a bit of stuff to go broker. That's the main thing that I see. Like newer loan officers, I think should probably go correspondent in retail, at least for a few years before they go broker. Just because when I was on the broker side, you learn a lot quick because you have to know a lot more than you need to know in retail, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think I was lucky because I had a good mentor, like right away. And I kind of had the system from prior knowing it years before, because it's the same system that I'm using now, honestly.
Right.
So, and just having the mentor like there with me every day, like I'd be in the office every day. You know what I mean? He's in the next office, I'm right there, just going over things, bouncing things. He would make me do his pre-quals at,
Oh, wow. Time. So you got a lot of exposure to
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, and I really prided myself on trying to know everything, like trying to know guidelines right away, trying to know all that stuff in order for, me to be successful later on, honestly.
I remember I was flying out somewhere. I forget where I was flying. And it was when I just got in the industry, and I printed out all the Fannie Mae and FHA guidelines and I was reading them. That's probably not the best way to learn it, but I thought it was a good idea at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. So one thing that I admire about you, and we talked about this a little bit in the pod or before the podcast, is you've been through some struggles, been through some stuff, and you've battled and you've come back. And I want to talk about this because I feel like it's inspiring for people that have excuses all the time. Right? Okay. Excuses about what they can accomplish, excuses about what they can do, whether they're too tired and whatnot. So I want you to share a little bit about, what you're currently going through, what you've been through, and let's get into that, man.
Okay. So before I say anything about that, I got to say, only by the grace of God am I here still today.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, I mean, I really take my faith as the major thing in my life, especially going through this again now. But to get into what we're talking about, 2019, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, stage 1A. Okay. I found it, we were talked about the other day. I found it kind of almost as a fluke, honestly. I had some pain, went to the ER. They saw something there, kind of let it go. About a month or so later, had a pain again. Went back to the ER, said, "Hey, Prentice, that mass that we see is kind of a little bit bigger. Let's get some more, tests. Let's look at some things." Then started doing the testing, started doing a bunch of different things. They thought it was a cyst at first, and then did some biopsy stuff. And they're like, "Oh no, okay, you have pancreatic cancer." And I'm like, "All right, so let's."
Holy crap! So, man, let's dive into that. So when that happened, and I guess I'm trying to find the right words. When you got that information, was it just like, what the hell? I don't even know what to believe. Like, could you not even believe? Because you even telling me that story, I feel like I'd be in that seat personally and be like, it's like a shock, but you probably in disbelief too. You don't even go into that a little bit. Like, what was that first feeling like?
So I remember, I think I still have the voicemail on my phone when they called me and they left a message, and they alluded to that, basically, that I had cancer. And I'm like, so I called them back, I called my doctor back, my oncologist back, and they confirmed, right? And so my first thought on that was, all right, well, let's get it taken care of. Like, do I got to have surgery? Like, what do I got to do? Mm-hmm. That was my first thought. And so that was like my first questions. And I didn't really, in my mind, I didn't really dive into like the whole thing about me having cancer for a little bit of time. My first thought was, what do I need to do to get rid of it? And let's start that now.
Right.
Okay. So that was my first conversation. I'm like, okay, so let's talk to the surgeon. Let's get that scheduled if they can take it out, and then tell me what the steps are after that. So we did that, talked to the surgeon. Surgeon's like, yeah, I can cut that piece of your pancreas out. And then we talked to my oncologist, and they're like, okay, well, after you do that, you're going to have chemo. I said, okay, whatever, let's do it. And so, I remember one point in time, though, I was driving to work one day, and I'm like, man, got a little emotional, like just out of nowhere, and I kind of broke down in my car by myself, crying. And I was like, man, this is crazy. You know what I mean? Like, why am I having to go through this? And at that point, I had faith in God, but it wasn't as strong as it is now, honestly.
Right.
I hadn't really come back to that until, last year around sometime. And so my walk with God wasn't as strong back then. So I didn't really kind of delve into that a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, I, just told him, hey, let's get this taken care of. Right. So I had surgery, major surgery, was, got recovery for about a month or so after surgery, then started chemo. And so, chemo's probably the worst part about cancer, honestly, that I know of,
now,
for me.
Let me get into this just real quick. You said the worst part about cancer. So when you have cancer, can you feel it like in your body? Are you
I think that there are, some forms of cancer that hurt and things like that. I haven't experienced that, so I don't know everybody else's. There's bone cancer, there's all kinds, spinal. There's brain cancer. There's all kinds of different cancers out there that can cause physical pain. Mine never caused me physical pain until I first felt it the first time. And like I said, it wasn't something that was ongoing. It was just, man, I got this pain in my stomach and then I have this pain in my back type of thing. And so I've never really felt the physical pain of that besides the chemo part. And so the chemo part is the part that sucks, basically. Right.
And do they inject the chemo into your body, like through a liquid? Or?
Yeah. So what I did the first time was I would go on a Monday. I'd go 8 a.m. in the morning, put IV in you, and then they just, fill you full of chemo, depending on how many you're going to be taking or how many different types.
And how long does that take?
All day, normally.
Really?
Yeah.
So you're in there all day in the hospital.
Yeah. It's like a chemo room they have there. So you're actually sitting, there's probably like 6 chairs in there, and you're sitting with other cancer patients who are getting chemo at the same time as you. So at that point, family and friends could go with you back then, because it was early 2020 when I started getting chemo. Yeah. Cause I got diagnosed in 2019. So actually 2019, and then in 2019 is when I got my first rounds of chemo. And so family could still go with you and friends, right? And so, all that went well. The first time I had 12 rounds of chemo, sit there, for the full day.
And does it burn when it's going into your
body?
No,
it's really weird. Each chemo is different, and it can affect you differently when you're sitting there. When that first time, if I can remember, it just made me feel lethargic and nauseated, and my bones hurt, and it gave me neuropathy in my hands and my feet, which is basically tingling and numbness.
How long did that last?
It lasted till after I was done. I still have kind of neuropathy in my feet a little bit, and sometimes in the tips of my fingers. It just depends. But the first time, like I was saying, it was certainly different, and it was an experience that I'll never forget, obviously. And, going into remission, because I went into remission after that, they had done the scans, everything looked good. Right. So then I ended up going into remission for about a year. And mind you, all that time I'm still working, like full bore. Like I'm not stopping. I didn't take any time off. The only time I took time off was to be in the hospital. And even then, my wife will tell you, like the day that I went into my first surgery, I was on the phone funding a loan that day, trying to get that thing done right before my surgery. And so that whole mindset of me stopping work never clicked in my head.
And you're the breadwinner for your family.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you have 4 kids right now.
Yeah.
That are relying on you, right?
Yeah.
4 kids, 2 grandkids.
Yeah. Not at the time, 2 grandkids, but 4 kids at the time. Yeah. And a wife.
And throughout all of this, you didn't take a handout. You just basically said, I'm going to make shit happen.
Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's powerful, right? Is so many people have excuses of just getting out of bed every morning, right?
Yeah.
They don't even want to get out of bed. They want to wake up at 11 o'clock in the day and just be lazy. And it's like, dude, there are people that have worse circumstances than you that are making shit happen, right?
Yeah.
And so you said my first time, right? And
Yeah.
for the viewers, the reason why he's saying the first time is because can I go into that currently? And then how many times have you been re-diagnosed with cancer?
Yeah. So going back to December of 2020, I had been just about a year clear in remission, basically. I had a scan, because I normally have scans every 3 to 6 months, a PET scan or a CT scan. And so December 2020, I had a scan, and they saw some things, and I'm saying, okay, well, what's going on? Well,
and do that. I feel like too, sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to interject this. Like, you're probably seeing that. And for me, at least, my initial reaction would be anger. I think I'd be angry. Is that how you kind of felt? Or is it just like,
I think my first reaction was, here we go again, honestly. And I don't know why in my mind, I would, every time I would have a scan or something, I'd be thinking it's coming back. For some reason, I just felt that way, right? And so when this one did come back, it had metastasized into my left kidney and then part of my liver. So what they did then was in February of 2021, I had surgery again. So this time was way different because they actually cut me from here to here, basically. And so there's probably 3 different surgeons in that one, to where they took my left kidney out. They took part of my liver out, my spleen, some lymph nodes, just some other things that they needed to remove, I guess, at that time. So that surgery was pretty harsh on me. Honestly, it took a little longer to recover. And then I ended up having 10 more rounds of chemo after that. So at that point, though, they had given me a port. So a port is just a little device that they put in you right here that's underneath your skin that they can just automatically just poke into, and you don't have to get poked all the time when you go to chemo anymore. You don't have to go with your arms, your hands, or anything.
And do you still have a port?
Yeah, I still have a port. Oh, wow. So, I had started my 10 rounds, and that second time was different chemotherapy because, as the cancer had changed and evolved, then they're going to do the chemotherapy treatments differently. So that time when I started, it was in 2021, right? So it was pandemic time, really. And they weren't allowing anybody to go in with you, like to sit and hang out with you or talk to you or anything. So you're having to sit there, and you talk to the other people who were having treatment at the time, and, hey, it's kind of weird, but you sit there and be like, hey, what are you in for? Kind of thing. It's a weird dynamic in a way, but it's kind of soothing because those people know what you're going through and they experience it and they feel it. And so, it was a little different the second time around because the second time, and when I say the second time, because we'll get into the third time now, but the second time, they gave me 3 different types of chemo. I'd go in on a Monday, sit there. They would give me the 2 first types of chemo because they wanted to see if I had a reaction to it. And so I did a little bit. And so they'd have to give you some things in order to, cope with the reaction of the chemotherapy that they're giving you. And then what they do now is I get one that's called a chemo pump. So it's looks like a little wine barrel, and they give me a fanny pack. And basically they hook me up to that, and I get another 36 hours normally of chemo to 40 hours of chemo that continually gives to me for the next couple days. And then my wife will disconnect me. She learned how to disconnect me from it, do everything that needs to be done, and, put it away in the storage that it needs to go into and things like that. So yeah, the second time was a little different feelings, different side effects. Like I can't drink anything really cold. Like normally the first week that I get it, that stuff's fine. No, that stuff's fine now because it's the second week and I haven't had it this week. But, like it almost feels like knives going down your throat. Like if you're trying to drink something cold, it's crazy.
How weird.
Yeah. And, just different little side effects about the second time. I did 10 rounds then.
So we'll get
Go for it.
I was going to say, how many rounds, because now we're on our third time.
Yeah, so now...
how many rounds have you gone through of chemo now?
24 so far.
24 in total.
24 in total so far, yeah.
So you have 6 more for this one.
So that's what the doctor said, yeah.
Okay, and how is it looking now? Is it looking...
Yeah, so to go where this time came around, February, I get this blood test now every 3 months or so that kind of checks to see if the cancer cells are in your bloodstream, basically first, right? So that test was done, and to be honest, I wasn't really expecting anything. I was thinking, I'm good, That test came back with a positive. My doctor's like, hey, we're going to start you on chemo right away. Right. Cause we did the PET scans, the CTs and all that stuff. They did see some things that they felt like they needed to take care of. And actually there was a 6.5 inch mass that they found, which she wasn't concerned about at the time, which was weird to me because she was more concerned about the blood test and the cancer cells being in my bloodstream, I think, and getting the chemo started than the mass itself. But I ended up having surgery again a couple months ago for that mass to be taken out. And it was a mass that just grew where my spleen used to be at. And it was the same cancer, basically. It was just a mass that grew within like 3 months because mind you, I had a scan 3 months prior to that and there was nothing there at all. And so it grew like within 3 months, it grew to like 6.5 inches, and which was crazy to me. I'll send you the picture of the scan and it shows like comparing to my body, how big it looks in my body.
And so where is that one?
It was down in here.
Just sitting on your rib or something?
Yeah. Just where small intestine and some other things were right there, so had surgery. And
do they have any sort of reason for this? Do they have any sort of the cause? Do they tell you do they have you on a certain nutrition plan?
So mine was hereditary. I had the genetic mapping done. And so they wanted to get that done for me for my doctors. So they had me do the genetic testing for that. And I was predispositioned to having the gene, basically. Mind you too, my uncle had just passed away from pancreatic cancer like a year before or so. So it's kind of in my family, apparently.
Wow.
And, now I gotta kind of think about it for my kids too. I gotta kind of make sure, maybe get them screened a little earlier for this kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just a predisposition type of thing inside of me, honestly.
Wow, man. So how has your relationship grown with God through starting in 2017 and then to now?
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's completely different?
Yes. And especially last year. So, around October of last year, was going through some things, really, I've always grown up in church. I've always known, I went to Christian schools when I was little. I've always known, right? I've always known about God. I've always known about faith, and all the things that go along with it. I was very, going to a Christian school, you're just reading the Bible all the time. You're doing Bible classes even and doing things like that. And I've always had an understanding and I thought a relationship, but I definitely fell away from that for a long period of time. I really focused on me, and not anybody else, to be honest. I was trying to, and especially when I was starting out in this business, I was like, man, I got to do this for me. I got to make sure I'm known and do all this and do all these different things. And I was thinking it's for me to be successful and to, bring food on my family's table and things like that. But what I didn't realize was doing all of that and not really having a relationship with God and not, giving thanks and praise where it should have been given to, had kind of really hurt me in a way spiritually. And like I said, last year, I kind of really came back to having a relationship with God, honestly. And that relationship I take seriously. And it has really helped me, especially now, again, as I'm going through it again for the third time, to deal with things. And yeah, I have my bad days, right? We all have our bad days where I'm like, man, I may slip back a little bit, but I really try to make it a focus to pray every day. That's what I'm trying. First thing in the morning, thank you for allowing me to have another day, because I could be gone already, to be honest. I could have been gone. I had a car accident when I was 19 years old that I flipped a car that I could have been gone at that time. You know what I mean? So there's plenty of times that I could have probably already been gone from this world. But for some reason, I'm still here, which is a blessing, and I'm super thankful for that because I get to see my kids grow up. I get to see my grandkids, things like that, and get to teach them about things now, and have that relationship with them about that.
How has your wife been through all this, dude?
She's been solid, man. Solid.
That's
If
cool.
if I could say anything, like, she has shown me love. She has been solid. Sometimes we don't take into account, even though I'm going through this, she's going through it.
100%. Right.
My kids are going through it,
And your kids are doing okay?
Yeah, my kids are doing good. We talk to them. I'm very straightforward with them about, my treatments or when I got diagnosed or the 3 times that I've got diagnosed, and hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do. They know when I have chemo, dad doesn't really feel good the first few days. Like, try to be a little bit more quiet because most of the time I'm just wanting to lay in bed, to be honest. But my wife has been a solid rock for me throughout this whole entire thing, man. She's been excellent.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that support system.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So now we get into the fact that you have not stopped working and you're still working through this chemo treatment as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Making shit happen. And not only that, I just want to point out that you're closing at a way higher level than 99% of LOs right now, especially in this crazy market, right?
Yeah.
Well, most LOs, let's be honest, are closing probably 1 to 2, 3 deals a month. And these were top producers as well that are struggling with that. And it's just a tough market, but there's ways to grow in this market. I can get into a whole dissertation about that, but you've been able to continue to grow and be successful in this market, I feel. So what do you attribute that to, bro? Like, how are you keeping that energy up with everything that you're going through? You have all these things thrown at you right now, and you can keep that positive mental attitude and keep pushing forward.
So I'll just go back to my relationship with God is always the first thing that I think about. And then the second part of that is, in my mind, I've always worked hard. It doesn't matter what I've done. It doesn't matter when I was playing college baseball, it doesn't matter, doing
Where'd you
all
play college baseball at?
Cal Poly.
Oh, badass. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So, going from that to anything, I started working when I was 15 on a dairy. My first job was on a dairy. It was Friends Dairy. We go out, and yeah, it wasn't an all day thing, but I learned how to wake up early, 5:00 in the morning, go to work, have a half work day for us because we were still younger. Right. But, and I've always, from that time when I started that first job on the dairy, was kind of how my mindset built to working, basically. And so I've never not been like that since then, honestly. And now going through this again, I mean, work really kind of takes my mind off it. Honestly, it makes me not think about, oh shoot, I got cancer. Oh shoot, I got to have chemo. Those type of things don't really go through my mind a whole lot. I'm more thinking like, hey, my daughter has like this today, or I got to, do this for work this morning and get this taken care of. That's always kind of been my mindset throughout the whole entire time I've been going through this.
Okay. So that's a testament to your mindset as well, right? Because you're not dwelling on these things that you can't control.
Right.
You're just focusing on what you can control and moving forward.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've, some of my buddies, if I have a bad day, I'll call them and be like, hey, man, I'm having a bad day today. And it's probably because I'm just thinking about what I'm going through, and I just start thinking about it too much, and I need to cut myself off, honestly.
Right.
I need to stop that mentality. I need to move on from that and just focus on, look, I'm still here. I'm able and able-bodied to work. Just go do it. That's all it is. That's all there is to it, basically, at that point. Stop. Don't feel sorry for yourself because nobody else will. It's not. I've never looked for sympathy during this entire time or anything like that. I just want people to know, look, man, if I can do it, and I feel like I'm normal. I'm a normal person. I have my flaws. I have, my good traits, I have my flaws, I have all these different things going on. But if I can do it, then I feel like other people can do it too. You know what I mean? Like it's just got to be the mentality part and the mindset to be able to put, well, let's get this done type of thing.
Well, this industry too, I was talking to somebody else about this, how, for instance, police officers, doctors, right? They get in at 8. Sometimes I'm sure some of them have 4 o'clock shifts or even earlier. They work all day long. They put in a solid 8, 9, 10 hours every day or whatever it is, overtime. Real estate is one of the only businesses that I've seen where people work 2 hours a day or 3 hours a day. And they say they're working really hard, like they come into the office and they're lollygagging, or they're talking to people, or they go to Starbucks and get a coffee, and then they come home and they go back and go to lunch, or like they just don't actually focus and do what needs to be done. So since you have that work ethic at the dairy farm, playing college baseball, I didn't even know that. That's a testament too. People that play collegiate sports or just sports in general, I feel like have a strong mindset for moving forward and working hard and all this kind of stuff. I think those are traits that get established as you grow up in sports. But everything that you've done has basically attributed to your success, basically, is what you're saying. And you're able to put the time in and actually put the real hours in that most people aren't willing to put in.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the big things. And my wife will tell you, Prentice will, go to work at, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. I try to be home, honestly, by 5. That's kind of,
right.
And I have somewhere to work at home too. So if I need to do something at home, I'm going to do something at home. Mm-hmm. But I kind of shifted my focus a little bit more now, to working hard and doing things, but I've really tried to make more time for my family. Mm-hmm. Where the first few years of business, I wasn't like that. Mm-hmm. It was just me, go do these events, go do these things, get my name out there, go do all this stuff. And I didn't really make enough time for them.
Dude, I feel you on that. I think though, in the first couple of years, unfortunately, you kind of have to put those extra hours in to make it happen, to get it. But once you're established, it gets a little bit easier to kind of chill a little bit. But that being said, one thing that I've learned, and I was doing a video about this on my story today, is that I was spending a lot of time, even when I started, and even now sometimes, doing things that aren't actually really moving the needle forward in my business. And so like if I can actually spend time between 9 and 5 every day, or 9 and 4 even, doing activities that are going to move the needle forward, like in my business as far as growth, then I don't have to work until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, because I'm putting in a solid amount of hours, and those hours have solid activities that actually yield results, right? And I think that a lot of people spin their wheels just doing things that aren't necessarily growing their business, right? They think they're working really hard, but they're just not actually doing things that are growing it. So,
yeah, I've learned that, in the mornings especially, I'm trying to do my follow-ups, seeing where, my current loans are that are in escrow, doing those different things first thing in the morning, going through my pipeline, seeing where things are at, talking to my processor, being like, hey, look, where are we at on each file? Mm-hmm. Let's make sure we get this, and this done. And then, spending the rest of the day trying to get new business, basically, reaching out to past clients, reaching out to, past realtors that I've worked with, just different things like that, in order to generate next month, because we're really a month by month type of business, to be honest, dude. And so
even going to Hawaii that I just did for a week, like we keep track of everything now. So I know the lead flow I'm getting, all that kind of stuff. Going to Hawaii for a week, like significantly declined the leads. I told everybody I was going to Hawaii and my lead flow went way down. And I was like, holy
that was your first mistake, telling him you're going to Hawaii.
I know, dude. I was like, I shouldn't have told anybody I was going on vacation. I went from, I won't say, but I had quite a bit of leads every week. And then like all of a sudden my Hawaii week, it just looks like a mean, there's some in there,
Right.
but comparatively, it's a big fat goose egg.
Right.
And I'm like, man, it makes a big difference in these times. In 21, it's very easy, right? You wake up, you get loans thrown at you, but you have to be doing those income producing activities right now to be closing the amount of deals that you want to close.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I've ever really said I've gone on vacation to my realtor partners, or I'm going on vacation kind of thing, you know, just because I think that puts in their mind, maybe I can't reach Prentice, you know, oh, I'm not going to reach out to him. Let me reach out to, you know, so-and-so then at that point. So, you know, whenever we go on vacation or something like that, I wouldn't post pictures because I don't want people to know, like, hey, I'm gone type of thing, to where you can't reach me, you know, but sometimes, you know, now I'll be like, hey, if I can't get back to you, I'll just send them a text. I'll get back to you shortly kind of thing, you know, if I can't do it right away.
Yeah.
So that's something that I've kind of learned over the years, that, like you said, like the first couple of years, and we have said this just a few minutes ago, was I really focused on me and trying to get the business going. That you're right. Like, it's really hard to make time for family in the first couple of years, that you're really trying to establish yourself, because there's so many things that you kind of really need to do. And, you know, now that we've both been in this for a little while now, that we can say that we are, you know, established, and we have good clientele base, we have good referral partner base and things like that, that it doesn't become easier. It just, it does make it a little bit more
less volatile.
less volatile. Yeah, absolutely.
Less volatile. So,
yeah.
Well, man, thank you for coming on. Is there anything that you want to end with?
You know, I to be honest, I don't know. I think that today we talked about a lot of good things, man. And I just hope that everybody kind of realizes, man, that whatever you're going through could be something, as, you know, nothing's minuscule in my mind of what people go through, because each person deals with their situations differently. But just know that you just got to keep moving forward. And that's what I've kind of always said, especially with the things that I've been doing, is just, as much as I want to feel sorry for myself sometimes, and I want to get into this place where I don't want to do anything, or, you know, maybe get up that day or do something, you know, you got to keep moving forward, because life doesn't stop. You know, we just got to keep moving forward and keep doing the things that we need to do. And that's been my main thing, man. And just keeping God first in my life, and in my family's life is huge for me right now. So, and I appreciate you for bringing me on today.
No, bro, I'm happy that you're able to make it on, dude. You're a tough son of a bitch. So I'm happy
I appreciate
that you came
it.
on, and appreciate it. So.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.